Hi, Gerhard Bloom, once again looking at the tyranny and the delusions of the social justice movement. So I might take a little while to get there, but I will tie this discussion in to the current social justice madness that is going on. I've had a couple of conversations recently with people talking about gossip. Oh, it's awful. Gossip, terrible. No, gossip plays a useful and important role in human existence and social existence. And it has done so for hundreds of thousands of years. It's part of the reason why we are deeply concerned with reputational management. We are concerned about what other people think of us. And so here's, some evolutionary context for this. And we see this playing out in primitive societies, right? So in primitive societies, well, let's take a step further back. Here's an interesting fact. For thousands and thousands of years, the human animal was anatomically modern. And the questions that, anthropologists and evolutionary psychologists have asked themselves, why did it take hundreds of thousands of years for human beings to live in settled communities? And one of the most interesting answers is that levels of reactive violence. Reactive violence is, I go into a bar, I'm having a beer, I look over, I see some guy looking at me. I look back at my beer, have a sip, I look over, the guy's still looking at me. So then we make sustained eye contact, a couple of words are exchanged, we go outside, there's a fight. Or somebody bumps into you, fight, and somebody gets grievously hurt. That's reactive violence, right? Contrast that with coalitional violence. Coalitional violence, armies mass, disciplined, well-formed, and they mass go over, kill the enemy, right? Coalitional violence. And what's interesting is that chimpanzees engage in the very same behaviors, right? But yes, they engage in coalitional violence. There's a troop of chimpanzees over there, a community of chimpanzees. They got the girls. We need the girls. We will, chimpanzees, and they enact noise discipline, just like the military. You're getting close up to the military, don't make a noise, right? This is calculated, and it's not reactive violence, right? And they find an isolated male chimp, they rip him to shreds, literally rip him to shreds, kill him. They keep doing that until progressively they can overrun that other chimpanzee community, take the girls, kill the babies, and that's it, right? Coalitional violence. And reactive violence, yes, human beings, there's reactive violence, but it's at a much, much lower threshold than chimpanzee coalitional violence. Yeah, there are dominant chimps. Excellent book in chimpanzee politics, Franz de Waal, chimpanzee politics, right? But they would have a very difficult time living in, anything with structured norms and behaviors, right? There are levels of reactive violence among chimpanzee troops, astronomical compared to human violence. I think Jordan Peterson was talking about this. You can go with a friend into a movie theater, sit amongst other friends. You can watch Planet of the Apes. No mass outbreaks of violence, right? Very, very rarely. Try that with actual chimpanzees. You give them free tickets and bananas to go watch Planet of the Apes, and it will be reenacted right there in the auditorium, right? Levels of violence off the scales. So the question became, how did we reduce over time, over those thousands of years, remember anatomically modern human beings, reduce reactive violence? Well, we became domesticated. Just like we domesticated dogs and horses and all sorts of other animals. But in each of those other cases, the agent of domestication was us. Who domesticated us? Turns out we did. And this plays out in primitive societies, and I'll be getting back to this gossip issue. In primitive societies, just like in chimpanzee troops, right? You get a dominant male, very aggressive chimp, and as Franz Laval discusses, he might be the biggest, toughest, meanest MNFing chimp there, but he can't take 3 of us on. So we get together and we express in chimpanzee form our displeasure at this guy. And when the moment's right, we get together and kill him. This is what happens in primitive societies throughout human history. And you are the biggest, toughest, meanest guy in the playground, hunter-gatherer society. You rape another man's wife. And by wife, we have been a pair bonding species for hundreds of thousands of years. And we are the only species of ape that pair bonds. And there's good evolutionary reasons why, right? Because Junior takes a lot of years of investment and coddling to be able to understand and negotiate the social norms, the values, the skills that it's going to take to survive. So that's the pair bonding thing. But yeah, this guy, he's a problem. He's murdered one of the members of the tribe. He's a problem. So what happens, this is the gossiping piece, right? We sit around the campfire and, Bob, that mean, hunter-gatherer there, has raped your wife and killed your cousin. He's off doing something. So we're sitting around the fire, but he's got relatives in this tribe, right? Because tribal communities very closely linked familially, right? And if me and a couple of my cousins go out and kill Bob, Bob's relatives are duty bound to kill me and those involved, or even linked members had nothing to do with it, right? This is how things work in these societies. So what happens is, Bob's cousins are sitting around the campfire and we start chatting, about Bob's latest misdeeds. And then the cousins are like, yeah, Bob's a problem. So what happens is, it's Bob's relatives. They invite him out on a hunting trip and Bob does not come back. So over the course of thousands of years, the genes for, reactive violence and aggressivity get slowly weeded out of the gene pool. And also mate selection, right? Women don't want preferentially to mate with dangerous, unstable, aggressive males. They don't. So over the course of mate selection and what amounts to capital punishment in these primitive societies, we became progressively domesticated. And sure, there are, very aggressive males, psychopathic, murderous males, but very, very few in numbers, not anywhere near approaching the chimpanzee communities, which, to a great extent, can minimize levels of violence. They're not killing each other on a daily basis, but there are extreme levels of violence. And a good chimpanzee dominant male can do a great deal to restrain the levels of violence, but nowhere near the ability that we have. So we are concerned. And when we're sitting around the campfire, works in a couple of ways here, right? By calling out Bob's activity, we reflect on our activity, right? Because we know how this game is played. Well, we're out doing something, taking a leak behind a palm tree, people might be whispering about our latest misdeeds. So we're very concerned and aware of how we think other people are thinking of us, and other people do the same thing, right? Whether it's at the coffee shop or you're a bushman in Africa, same game is being played. And also, it is a social cue to other people that you have your values turned on straight, right? So this is getting back to the Hamas slaughters and, all of it. And this poisonous, that guy in a dress that just walked into a woman's shower room. Oh, yeah, that's a woman. Trans women are women, trans women. No, it's not. It's a lie. Trans women are men pretending to be women. But here's the thing. When at the coffee station and they talk about, trans athletes, and depending on the environment, most environments, a university, you know, people are, oh, of course, you know, Leah Thomas, a wonderful swimmer, wonderful. What is she doing? You know, what is she doing for trans women's rights? Isn't that wonderful? And then, you know, you're sipping your coffee, trying to mind your own business and get out of there with your dignity unscathed. People start looking, well, what do you think, Gerhard? Now, I got a very difficult choice to make because depending on the environment, right? If it's at university, the college kids, I don't parrot this poisonous nonsense, or I don't shout, you know, antifada, antifada. People look at me and I get culled from the herd, just like, you know, in these primitive societies. You know, it's the death penalty. The other one is you get tossed out of the tribe, which is effectively a death sentence in primitive societies, right? You need the tribe to survive. And the rest of the world, in our social environment now, you are at some woke company and you don't parrot the Black Lives Matter nonsense. Somebody marches off to the HR department and says, you know, that Gerhard there, he's a racist. He doesn't think Black Lives Matter. And the HR department and the company loves you. You've been a long-standing, loyal employee, and they know this is nonsense, right? They know this BLM stuff, cultural Marxist nonsense, and gets black people killed because of the defunding the police. It has a reputation it needs to manage. And they know that if they don't deal with me, this poisonous little Nazi stamping their little fascist social justice boots is going to go back to the coffee room and say, you know, the HR and this company, they're not doing anything. And then they all go home and they get on, you know, TikTok and X, and they start maligning the company. So the company culls you from the herd. That's right. This is how this game is played, right? So reputational management. And so, and, you know, Jews for Palestine, again, right? Or queers for Palestine. Chickens for KFC. But they don't understand the consequences this game has, right? If you are a queer and you support, you know, the Palestinians who would kill you in a matter of minutes, if you got down into the West Bank or Gaza and started waving the banner of gay rights, they will throw you off a fucking building. And I mean that literally. Happens all the time. And anyway, or you're Jewish, and you're going, you can't go into Gaza if you're Jewish. They will kill you. Every now and again, some poor Jewish person, you know, gets lost and ends up by accident in areas of the West Bank. They get killed immediately. So anyways, so yes, we progressively domesticated ourselves, and we're concerned for reputational management, but this can work in socially constructive ways and very damaging ways. And pardon me, I believe Jordan Peterson spoke about this, but I'll add my 2 cents for what it's worth. When social scientists first started studying bullying, they looked at male bullying because it's overt, it's physical, it's aggressive, but it doesn't scale. You know, I'm picking on some little Urkel on the playground, and it's between me and him, and some of the other guys break it up and tell me to smarten up because now I'm worried about my reputational management, and it doesn't scale. But the social justice, you know, bullying, female bullying, that's what this is. Female bullying. They call their once member of their little female tribe at school, and they start this whispering campaign behind this person's back. It goes on for days or weeks, and they have no idea what's going on, but then they're shunned socially, and it's unrelenting. And now with mass media, it scales. You know, young girls, you know, having to leave school, they have to leave the city, and it still follows them because of social media. And yes, numerous occasions, these young women die. They kill themselves because it's pitiless, remorseless, and unrelenting. And this is exactly what you see with these social justice warriors. You get, you know, that Google executive who, of course, is a reason why there aren't as many very senior computer scientists and engineers at Google, right? But the data is clear. And it's not because women aren't smart. They have, on average, different preferences. Men typically like working with things, women with people. And you're working on a computer all day. I couldn't do it. But at any rate, this happened. So James Damore, I think, he gets fired, and then his name is trash. And if he goes to another company, these militant zealots, these fascists for social justice, they will contact that company and say, hey, do you know what, this guy is a misogynist and he doesn't think women can do computer science, and are you going to hire him? Same thing, reputational management. They don't want their corporate reputation tarnished, so he doesn't get the job. But anyways, there are signs that people are pushing back against this poisonous ideology, and a good thing too. But anyways, some things to consider. Oh, gossip isn't all bad. It has a necessary and useful function, and like anything, you know, double-edged sword. And anyways, thank you so much for your time and attention. I hope I didn't ramble on too much. If you enjoyed the video, please do drop a thumbs up, and check out my book, Deconstructing Social Justice. I walk you through this evolutionary logic, evolutionary psychology, all sorts of interesting discussions there. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Yep, the book is not important because I wrote it. I wrote it because the issues could not be more important. Thank you so much for your time and attention now. Bye-bye.